Hello everyone. Welcome to Make Your Interactive Read-Alouds Come Alive. I'm Rochelle, and I'm excited to be your host for today's webinar, featuring the one and only Deedee Wills from Mrs. Wills Kindergarten. We'll get started with Deedee's presentation in just a moment, but first, we have a few housekeeping details for you.
Oh, it's not working. Oh, Michelle. There we go.
You got it. Okay. For better audio video quality, close other applications like Skype that use bandwidth. If you're having any audio or video issues, try refreshing or changing your browser. Today we will be using the question feature since everyone is muted during the webinar. If you have a question, type it in the box. Let's practice now. Everyone, find the question box and type in where you are from.
It's all quiet.
Wonderful.
Hi, everybody.
Look at all the people we have from all different parts of the country and even from other countries. Welcome, everyone. Today, you will receive a certificate of attendance for attending the webinar live. Your certificate of attendance will be emailed to you within 2 days, so check your email. We here at ESGI are thrilled that so many of you have registered to learn with Deedee today. Thanks to all of you who are dedicated to helping children and families. And we are very pleased that we have 5 awesome prize packages to give away today. Each prize package will consist of a year of ESGI, which is a $199 value, a $75 gift certificate to Deedee's TPT store, and everyone will receive Deedee's sample unit. Now I'm going to turn it over to Deedee and let the learning begin.
Hi, everybody. This is Deedee. Thank you so much for joining me today. Reading and writing instruction is something that I feel really, really passionate about. I'm really excited to share my thoughts with you today. So before we begin, I want to tell you a little bit about me. First off, I'm a mother and a wife, an educational blogger, but the most relevant role that I hold in relation to this webinar is I'm a teacher. I started my teaching career in San Diego, where I taught in an inner city school, and 96% of my students were second language learners. And of those students, 100% of them were free and reduced lunch. So in this school, we had to differentiate our instruction. I had zero knowledge of the English language, and I had students who performed above grade level. I never taught with a basal, and I've always created my own curriculum. So after working in San Diego, my family moved to Missouri, and quickly after arriving in Missouri, my administration approached me and asked if I would consider taking on an instructional coach position and shift our district away from a basal and towards balanced literacy. And I agreed, and I worked with the K2 teachers to help strengthen and shift their instructional practices. I loved this job. I loved working with teachers and seeing the power of instruction in the classrooms. But honestly, I missed having my own classroom. I had a relationship that you get form with those little 5- and 6-year-olds or those little kids. So when a kindergarten position opened and pleaded, and I may or may not have played, but my way, and I got to go back into the classroom. So I spent many years in kindergarten and I was the lead teacher in my district. I served on our district's instructional literacy team, and every day I had the honor of being that launching spot for kindergarten students. It's the best job ever. Those of you who are in kindergarten, you know, and I think first grade would be my next pick for sure. In addition to working in the classroom, I also travel nationally to provide professional development for other districts and educators. This school year, this was a question they asked if I was in the classroom, but this school year I'm relocated again, and I decided that I would dedicate this year full-time to doing professional development. I still get to go in classrooms. I still get to have my little kid fix working with 5- and 6-year-olds. So, I mean, my heart is happy doing that. And I tell you all of this because just like you, I'm a practitioner. I know what it's like to have the daily grind and the daily tasks of a classroom. I understand the challenges. I understand there's probably no such thing as the perfect lesson. I try to be better tomorrow at what I did yesterday. I'm far from an expert, but I'm willing to share my knowledge with you and hope I will in turn give you some tools that you can use in your daily classroom. So let's begin. That was probably painful. It was probably painful for you to listen through my little intro, so now you get a prize package. You get to win something for listening. Melinda is going to tell you who the winner is.
Hello, everyone. Hello, this is Melinda with ESGI, and I have the privilege of announcing the 5 lucky winners for today's webinar. We're getting several questions from people who are not able to see their screen or they can't hear the audio. So my best advice to you, since I have this opportunity to tell so many of you who are asking, to click the Go to Webinar Viewer. If you can see that image on your screen, you should be looking at a turquoise slide that says prize package number 1 at this time. And if you can't hear, then check the audio settings on your laptop and make sure that the volume is turned up, and that should assist with the audio piece. With that said, the first lucky winner is Leah Travis. So Leah Travis, we will be emailing you tomorrow with more information about your prizes. Congratulations. So back to you, Deedee.
Congratulations. So I have a little, I'm going to say bad words, don't record that, edit that out. I have a little clicker that when I present, that is for some with audio or the program we're using is not working, so I'm having to use my mouse, and so keeping the screen. I apologize. Hopefully you don't, but I want to tell you that the webinar is for on how interactive read-alouds. I want to show you the why and the how. So we have to plan with the end in mind. So the next part of this is, what is an interactive read-aloud? A lot of people ask me what it is. It's a systematic method of reading a book aloud. The teacher is doing the word decoding and the students are asked to do the thinking work. Through careful planning, teachers can scaffold the students' understanding of the book being read. The teacher also models strategies for comprehension as well as teaching vocabulary. So in this picture, you see the teacher reading Gingerbread Man. He's doing the word work and the students are doing the thinking work. So we use an interactive aloud. Research has demonstrated that the most effective read-alouds are when the students are actually actively involved in asking and answering questions and making predictions rather than just passively listening. So talking, writing, drawing in response to reading gives students an opportunity to make their thinking visible. So how do you get started? Passion is contagious. That sounds kind of risque, doesn't it? But passion is contagious. Great instruction starts with passion. So you have to start with a great book. One of the questions that I got a lot is, what are some of my favorite books? And honestly, it's constantly changing. Deanna and I sat down and wrote these guided readers, and we really had to weed out a lot of our favorite books because we both had so many. I tried to select a few here in front of you and in front of me, but I will post a whole list of books that we have for our guided readers, so you can pick some, you can use some of those in your own instruction. But you start with with a great book. Some books just beg to be read over and over again, and in order to have a meaningful conversation, you have to start with a great book. So an interactive read-aloud, careful is needed. So you need time to kind of live with that book before you even attempt to read it to your students. I don't know if this ever happened to you, but sometimes I'm guilty of just grabbing a book off the shelf and reading it without having really previewed it before. And I have to tell you this true story. We were studying penguins, and we had all of our penguin books up. I had my one that I used for an interactive read-aloud handy, but we'd finished that, and it was like that 3 minutes before lunch thing, so I picked up another book. And so I was reading it, and if you've been to any of my sessions, you probably heard this story before. But I was reading it to my students, and we got to the back of the book where it had all these different types of penguins. And so they were like, what's that one? What's that one? I'm reading off the titles, but I'm just kind of thinking about getting into lunch, not really thinking about what I'm doing. And they pointed, what's that one? Well, the name of the penguin was a jackass penguin. And so my students went to lunch with the non-jackass penguin, and then they said over and over again. And then the custodian got upset because they were saying jackass. And the people got involved, and she said, you didn't really tell them about a jackass. Anyhow, true story. The moral of the story is you really need to look and preview your books really well before you start to share it with your students. Okay, so you start with the inner conversation. This is the hack. I'm going to do this with Ordinary Mary, but active readers interact with the text. So as they read, an active reader will have a running narrative in their head. So as you're planning an interactive read aloud, you must take notice of that running narrative. So I'm going to do a little of this inner conversation with the book. When I plan a book, I read it, and I have a notepad right next to me. When I taught second grade, I would just write notes inside it because it was a chapter book. I would just write notes on the inside of the book, all of my little inner conversations that I would have. So I'm going to show you my inner conversation that I'm having with Ordinary Mary. It is a long book, so I'm going to read quickly. If I make a mistake with one of the words, don't point it out because it'll make me feel bad. But I'm just going to read really quickly, and then I'm going to demonstrate this inner conversation that I have. Okay, here we go. Ordinary Mary was so ordinary that you'd never guess she could change the world. This ordinary kid, she did. She changed the world. So as I'm reading this text, I'm thinking, wow, she changed the world. That's big. I wonder what she did to do that. I wonder how she changed the world. One ordinary day, scared away from Mary school to her ordinary house, she passed an ordinary vacant lot filled with ordinary bushes, growing ordinary berries, ordinary blue and juicy, luscious, lovely berries. So as I'm reading this, I'm thinking, oh, I love how the author used the word ordinary over and over again. It really makes me think that there's nothing really special about any of these things. And she looks surprised or excited maybe at berry, so I wonder what happened next. Well, Ordinary Mary picked the ordinary and brought them in a big brown bowl to Mrs. Bishop's porch. What? Left berries in the big brown bowl on Mrs. Bishop's porch? That sneaky kid. She did. This made Mrs. Bishop very, very happy. So she baked a big batch of blueberry muffins and thought of 5 people who might have brought those beautiful, who have brought those beautiful blueberries, then secretly gave each a plate. How great, 5 people got a plate. So while I'm reading that, I'm thinking, first on the first page, where it says Mary has the berries, like I'm wondering why does it say she's the sneaky kid? What is sneaky about carrying a bowl of blueberries? But on the next page, I realize, oh, now I get it. She was going to drop them off unannounced. So I also am thinking that I love blueberry muffins, but that's probably not as relevant. Y'all are going to hear me say a bad word over my technology issues here. So one of those 5 was her paper boy, Billy Parker. And when Billy saw his name on the note in the driveway on a plate, he quickly parked his bike and ate every crumb. Oh, yum, yum, yum. He ate every crumb. And this made him so glad that the next 5 people got their papers on the porch and not in the bushes where they often threw them. In fact, they were handed right to them. So this makes me think of that movie. It's like a pay it forward kind of story. And it makes me think of that movie with Kevin Spacey and that little kid, the one that says, like, I see dead people, that kid. So it makes me think, so now I'm already activating my prior knowledge. I'm thinking, oh, I think I know how this is going to go. One nice deed is going to go to the next nice deed. It's going to go to the next nice deed. easy for me to say. Okay, we're going to move on. So basically the story continues on with one person doing a kind deed for the next, for one person doing a kind deed for 5 people, and then that person going on and doing a kind deed for 5 more. Here's a picture of Stevens. He's playing peekaboo with one of the child. This child was really cranky, but because of Mr. Stevens, now he's happy. So the family of that little boy was thrilled, so they are going to go ahead and do 5 kind things, and one of them is they give an orange to Joseph. One of those 5 was Joseph, old and bent and gray, in front of her in line at the produce stand. When he said, "I guess I counted wrong. I don't really need these oranges," little James reached out to him with an orange from their basket. And Maria put a coin in Joseph's hand and said, "Here, take this. The oranges are on us." So when I read this, I thought, oh, wait a minute, is Joseph poor? I'm thinking maybe, or maybe he just doesn't have money, or did he really count wrong? And I'm wondering, why did he say, "I guess I counted wrong"? Is he just kind of embarrassed that he doesn't have enough money? So those are some questions that I have. As Joseph shuffled to the bus, his heart was full and his eyes were wet. It makes me think maybe he was crying. And his hands did helpful things for the next 5 people he met. One of those 5 was Sarah, a college girl who was off to see the world and stopped at Joseph's shop. When her bag broke and her things fell over the floor, she said, "Oh, what will I do?" Joseph said, "This is for you," and he gave her a new bag woven from his own hands in red and purple and green. "Oh, thank you," she said. "It's the loveliest bag I've ever seen." When Sarah left, she felt sunny as noon. Oh, that's a cool expression, sunny as noon. And she just had to shine on 5 people soon. So I kind of also like the rhyme and rhythm in this book. There's sunny as noon and 5 people soon, so there's kind of a rhythm to this book. And I'm also thinking that Joseph perhaps isn't poor because he has a shop, but he doesn't seem like he has a lot of money. And I think it's incredibly kind that somebody who doesn't have a lot gives a lot. So I'm already kind of forming some thoughts there. One of those 5 was Sophia, whom she had met on the boat, looking like the world might come to an end, looking like someone without a friend. I wonder why she's sad. Someone without a friend. I guess she's lonely. "What beautiful blue eyes you have," Sarah said, "and they're just the color of your flowers in your lovely dress." "Yes," said Sophia. "Oh, yes," said Sarah. The beautiful blue eyes shed a happy tear, and when the boat trip was through, Sophia called 5 people to make them happy too. I'm going to go on instead of reading every page. I'm going to skip ahead. So one of the things that she does is she calls her son, who is a doctor, and he's just thrilled to hear from his mother that he goes out and does 5 kind things. He finds balloons, and one of the 5 students who gets the balloons patients who gets the balloon is Peter, who had just came home from the hospital, and he was so thrilled that when he saw this young boy, Eric, drop his bags, he went ahead and helped. When Eric got home, he was so filled with joy from this kind act that when he saw his sister, he invited her to go to the park and ride a skateboard. And she was so happy from that act that when they saw the homeless woman, they bought her a hot dog and a drink. And the homeless woman was so touched by this that when she found a wallet, she returned it to the person who had lost it. So I'm already thinking, here's this woman, this homeless woman, who hands a wallet in when she probably needs money pretty badly. So what an honest person. That's my inner conversation. So she has nothing. She returns the wallet, and it was pretty impressive that she got a job, which I think is pretty amazing. Makes me happy. So the man who got his wallet back, he does 5 kind things, and one of those people was Kate. One of those 5 was Kate, a woman on vacation who wanted to see a show that she heard was a sensation. It's kind of a cool word, sensation. "Oh no," she said, "it's sold out, but I'm going home tomorrow," and her face was filled with sorrow. Oh, another cool word. Mr. Taylor held out his ticket. I live here. He said, I can go anytime. Take mine. Kate loved the show and was so touched that she thought buying 5 presents for 5 people back home would be really. And one of those 5 presents was a little heart necklace for Mary, her niece. And you should have seen her eyes light up in surprise. So obviously this is Mary from the beginning of our story, so it has come around full circle. Mary, what? Ordinary Mary? Yes, ordinary Mary. Extraordinary deed had come full circle and on its way had changed the lives of every person living. You see, when Mrs. Bishop made muffins from Mary's blueberries, not only the paper boy, Billy Parker, but the other 4 people too made 5 people smile, and those 5 did too. And after a while, in only 15 days, love was sent to every person everywhere. Just see how it went. And when I saw this page, I thought that would be an amazing math lesson that you could do with an older student. Well, 6 billion is even more than all of the people on the planet. And when I read that, I wondered, like, how many people are on the planet? I don't know. I could Google it. So after everyone had a share and everyone knew that somebody cared, there was even love left over. The world was changed, and thousands and millions and billions agreed it was all because one ordinary day, ordinary Mary did a perfectly ordinary, stunningly earth-shaking, totally extraordinary deed. All right, you've suffered through listening to me read. You're going to get a prize. So Miss Melinda will be back to tell you who won something in just a moment.
All righty. Thanks, Deedee. That was great.
There she is.
I'm here. Can you hear me? Okay.
I can hear you.
Deedee? Okay, great.
Yep, I can hear you.
The second winner for tonight's broadcast is Samantha Baker. So Samantha will be emailing you soon. Thank you so much for joining us. Back to you, Deedee.
Yay, Samantha. All right, thank you. Okay, so now talk about planning for instruction. So when I read a book, I usually read it again and again and again, so that when I plan a book, I read it maybe, I'm not kidding, like 15 times. I read it over and over and over again. So that's one thing. It needs to be a book that I enjoy because I'm going to be living with this book for a long time. And then in the classroom, this is how I plan for instruction. One of the questions that I got is, do you read the same book over and over again? And the answer is yes, I do. I read the same book Monday through Friday. That is my big focus for the week. When we do a close read, that's what we want to do. We want to have one book that we work on all week. It's not the only book that I read all week, but it's the one that we like dissect. So usually I read the entire book cover to cover Monday and Tuesday, and then I may skim and scan, depending on what my focus is, on Wednesday and Thursday, but generally I read the whole book again on Friday. And somebody said, well, don't your kids get bored? No. They beg for me to read it over and over and over again. I know, like when my son was little, we read the same book every single, I mean, we love it. It's like familiar. It's like that comfortable blanket. They want that one thing that they've already know so much about. Part of the way that you keep that enthusiasm up is that you have to be enthusiastic about the book. If you pick up a book and you're not excited about it, you don't really care for it, your kids are going to know it. So I would, you know, even though like Dan and I plan certain books, but if you read one, you're like, I don't really like this book, I wouldn't necessarily do it with your students, because if you don't love it, it's going to be a hard one for them to love. So it is the commitment to do a close read. Each rereading has a different purpose, and instruction for close reading involves scaffolding students' meaning making within the text. I usually spend about 30 minutes on my read aloud interactive writing response block. So it's about 30 minutes a day. Some days it's a little bit more, some days it's a little bit less, but in general it's 30 minutes. I'm going to move on. So in the beginning of reading, there's these that I really like on at the beginning of the text. Predict one of them. That's one that really needs to happen before they've read the whole book. So you can't really say, can you predict what's going to happen if they already know what happens in the story? So prediction is usually one that happens early during that first read. I usually try to find a spot in that book where you can kind of where the students have some evidence, because I'm going to ask them, what do you think is going to happen, and why do you think that's going to happen? Why do you think that's going to happen? What makes you say that? So if I just show them the cover, like let's say Ordinary Mary's Extraordinary Deed, I mean, they don't have any type of evidence to pull from, so that would not be a good spot for them to start their prediction. In this particular book, right when Mrs. smiles to the strangers with their bags. So readers make predictions as they read. Mr. Stevens smiles to help strangers with their bags. What do you think happened? Why do you think that? So already have been exposing forward in the book, so now they have some evidence they can grab onto and hopefully incorporate that in the response. Another early strategy that I like to do is visualization. With picture books, visualization is kind of done for them most of the time. Most of the time, the illustrator does that job for them. So I have to hold the book close to me and read the text without showing the picture and ask them to make a picture in their head. I worked as an interventionist for 4th grade when I was doing literacy coaching. One of the things that I would do in the after-school tutoring program is I took a 4th grade group, and even though they could like decode like the wind, when I asked them to comprehend any type of comprehension, they just couldn't do it. And when I asked them to make a picture in their head, they had nothing. So we have to make sure that we teach them these different strategies because you probably had students who can decode anything, but then when you ask them what was the story about, they look at you with some confusion because they aren't able to visualize. So I asked them to make a picture in their head. Can you see it? Can you feel it? Can you hear it? Can you taste it? Can you smell it? And then for my students, what I just do is ask them to draw a picture. I think I have, there we go, there's a picture. This shows you, this is from Piggy Eye, and you can see the images there. It says, Gritch pulled her hair. That's up at the upper left hand. I'm going to have to figure out my left or my right, and that's scary. Upper left-hand corner, Gritch pulled her hair. Then right next to it says she stomped her feet, and then she paced the floor, and then she tapped her lucky wart on her chin. These are not particularly sophisticated illustrations. These are done by gardeners, so they're not particularly sophisticated, but they had to visualize to draw the picture. And I love the wart, the lucky wart on the chin. I thought that was really funny. On day 2, I usually will ask them to do a retell. Now, if you follow my blog, I've talked a little bit about this, but one of the things that we do in my classroom or in my old district was that we did the DRA, which is a developmental reading assessment. We did that quarterly, no, actually 3 times a year. We did 3 times a year. We started in December. We did one second semester, and then we did one at the end of the year. So part of the DRA is they read a small portion of text, and I do a running record to see for mistakes and accuracy, and then afterwards, then I ask them to do a retell. Not everybody knows what a DRA is, so I'm explaining it. Okay, so I asked them to do a retell, and in the past, this retell was like pulling teeth. They're like, okay, then what happened? Okay, then what happened? But after doing these lessons with my students, like I just said, start at the beginning and tell me what happened in the story, and they just they could put it all in order. So how I set this up for the book is I look at the book and I try to find about 6 to 8 text details that can be placed in order. Some stories are sequential and some stories aren't. Ordinary Mary is a sequential book. I'll talk about how Ordinary Mary's retell is a little bit different, but I'm going to show you some other examples. So this one on the screen that you see right now, you see the blue shirt, hopefully seeing the same that I am. It's Tacky the Penguin, is what she's sequencing Tacky Penguin. I just have a black piece of paper, and I have beginning, middle, and end, and they have all of the pictures, and they have to put them in order. They do that with their classmates. So let's see if I can go to the next screen. Dang it, there it is. Okay, so after put in order, you see the picture of the boy, the photograph of the boy with the dark hair. He's looking at that sequential order, and he's talking with his partner. So the way that I have it set up is after we put it and all agree that it's in the right order. Then I have partner one, I call them my peanut butters, or maybe I'll have the jellies start, and I say, go ahead and start. So partner one would say something like, oh, I don't have a story right in front of me, but they would start at the beginning of the story, and they would start to tell the details in order. And after about, 10 seconds or so, I'll say switch, and then the jellies have to pick up right where the peanut butter stopped, and we do that back and forth, switch, switch. They think it's hilarious, but what is happening is they have to pay attention to what their partner is saying, and they have to know what comes next. If they get to the end of the story, they go back to the beginning of the story and start again, and so they're retelling that story over and over and over again. This is great for second language learners because they get to practice the language over and over again. It's great for those students who tend to hang back and maybe not participate because they have no choice but to participate. Meanwhile, while they're doing this, the reason why I have them tell it 3 or 4 times, I'm walking around the room, I'm listening in on the conversation, I'm supporting students who need it, I'm making sure everybody's engaged. Okay. And then after they do that partner sharing where they're retelling the text, then they will do an individual retell. They have the same images, but they're in black and white, and then they go ahead and put it in order. We recently started doing crafts because we wanted to have that hook. So we're trying to integrate the retell with a craft to add that novelty. For Ordinary Mary, it's one of those stories that's really hard to tell in sequential order because there's so many details in that story. So with stories that either don't necessarily, that aren't really sequentially dependent, we might do something that is in the story or not in the story. So you see the picture with the photograph of blue. That one is Wimberly Worried. So we did the story not in the story because she had a lot of events happen to her, but they could have easily happened out of order, and it wouldn't have affected, like at the beginning of the story, those could have happened out of order. It really wouldn't affect the story too much. It could have happened in different orders, is what I'm trying to say. So Ordinary Mary we decided to do in the story, not in the story. The picture with the boy's hands, that's Alexander's terrible, no good day. So that's him putting those in order. Sometimes you can have students respond in a craft like we had with the bear hat, or you can have it on a piece of construction paper, or a lot of people like to put them in journals, so that's the option. And if you can look right here, you can see the black and white version, same images, black and white version. Oh, somebody asked me in the questions, how do I create things? We create everything in PowerPoint because it's really easy to manipulate graphics. And then for the clip art, sometimes we find them that are already available, or we contract people to create the clip art for us. Okay, so usually this is about the time we get to day 3. So day 1 is usually prediction or visualization. Day 2 is some type of read, some type of text details that they want to do. Day 3 is usually a couple different things. So we have a couple different things we do day 3 and 4. One of them is connections. So when we connect with the text, it reminds you, helps them understand the story and the character's motivation. When I was reading Ordinary Mary and they talked about the boy throwing the newspaper out, I totally made a connection because I used to be a newspaper carrier. Little known fact about Deedee Wills. So I used to be a newspaper carrier, and I may not have been really good about getting the paper where it needed to go. Okay, so here's connections. This was Ordinary Mary's connections. We write what ordinary, we draw a picture of something that Mary did, and something that is similar that we've done. So I think this one is Mary showed kindness. What was something that you did that showed kindness? How did it make you feel? We have 3 different options there. Somebody had asked me why there's 3 different options. The small one is kind of chopped. That way if they're putting them in a notebook. And then we have a first grade version that allows a little more text, and then maybe a kindergarten version where there are more illustrations. Okay, here's another couple examples. The one that says Peter and Me, that was our very first book that I did guiding readers with in January, and so I wasn't really sure what to expect, but I love his response. So this is somebody who hadn't had a lot of this instruction in the past from me. We did read-alouds, but it wasn't focused. So in January, we did this response. And it says, Peter likes to build a snowman. I do too. And Willow does too. And Willow is his brother's name. On the other side is from Alexander's. And it says, one day. The question is, have you ever had a bad day, I think. And it says, one day I spilled my breakfast and I hurt myself. Making those connections. Next one is inferring. That was a question. They said, do you have, somebody had said they were having students had a hard time with inferring. I haven't really experienced that. I guess it is hard to find that spot for inference in a text. You have to pick a good spot for them to do the inferencing. This one, the one that said journal response, The Snowy Day, again, that was the first book I did with my class. So the question is, readers infer to help them understand what is happening in the story. What do you think happened to Peter's snowball? What evidence from the text helps you to know this? So she drew a picture of the pocket, wet, dripping, and she says, I think the snowball melted. Ordinary Mary, we have a different question. Do you think the story would have been different if Mrs. Bishop knew who gave her the berries? Explain your thinking. On day 4, we usually did deeper, day 4. These are just different types of comprehension lessons we could focus on. It's not all of them, but it's just some of the ones that we include in our lessons. And then usually day 5 is our opinion piece. At the beginning of the year, we try to keep it really simple. Write about your favorite part of the story and tell why you liked it. That's pretty easy. It's right in line with the Common Core Standard. Everything in our units are aligned to Common Core Standard, so that you would be covering them for kindergarten and first grade. If you need second grade or third grade, our units are probably not going to be meaty enough for you. Amy Lemons and Katie King have great units called Rooted in Reading, so if you're second or third grade, or probably even fourth grade, you might want to look at those. Here's back to the opinion. Writers can write about their opinions and tell why they feel that way. Here's a couple of examples. For Alexander, terrible, no good day. I think Alex and the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day was good because it was funny. And then I love the little illustrations that they have at the bottom. And then Jamie O'Rourke and the Big Potato, the question was, do you think it was fair that the villagers gave him their food? And this was a sample from my class. This is no, I do not. No, it was not fair. He was lazy. And we all know Jamie O'Rourke is lazy. Here are some other opinion pieces. This is from Abe Lincoln's Hat. And let me get to, okay, do you think you would be, this is the question, do you think you would be a good president? Why or why not? One of them says, I would be a very good president because I read a lot of books. If you're not familiar with that story, that was one of the things that they said Abe Lincoln does. And then the other one says, I would be a good president because I am nice. And that totally looks like my stint, so I'm not sure. So somebody asked about assessment. Here's another response to that question. Having a written response is a fantastic way for you to see their thinking. So the one on the left says, I would be a president because I would put papers in my hat. Although this page was done beautifully, like her illustration is beautiful, you can tell that she has some misinterpretations. The one on the right says, I would be a good president because I am smart. We're going to talk a little bit more about Abe Lincoln's Hat a little bit later when we talk about assessment. But when you're them respond to the text, you see if they get the big idea or not, depending on what they write. And I can tell, even though this is a wonderful young lady, she did not get the big idea behind what makes a good president, because putting papers in their hat isn't it. So she didn't get the big idea. That means I need to do more instruction. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, though. Vocabulary is also something that we do. I have different ways that we do it. One, you see the boy with the little paper piled up. He is demonstrating a heaping pile of snow. And then I think the girl with the notebook, you can see her little orange bracelet around her wrist. She is doing a response with like 3 sections to it. So Under the first one, she draws a picture of the word. Underneath it, she uses it in a sentence. And at the bottom, she would use write the opposite of the word. She does that with support, and I'll talk to you about support in a little bit. The one right next to it says president. That was the vocabulary we were working on. So she wrote down the president is the boss. And then up at the top, it says laugh in all those puzzle pieces. Those were just different words for laugh. So we did that one. I think that was Piggy Pie. Looked text and found all the different ways that you could say laugh. So giggled, tickled, snickered, and cackled. Interactive writing is the next thing I want to talk to you about. That's part of our response. One of the questions that I'm asked is, how do you do this at the beginning of the year when your students can't write, or that they don't have any letter sound association, or they don't know what to write? And we do that by showing them. At the beginning of the year, most of their meaning is made with illustrations. So just like Writer's Workshop, they spend a lot of time making their meaning through illustration. And over time, we kind of nudge them into letters and words, right? So interactive writing is a powerful way of demonstrating writing. It invites kids to come along and compose and write this together. So we're going to do this together. It's no pressure, no big deal. When we respond to a writing prompt, we always start by talking. Like every single time we start by talking. First and foremost, we are doing the hard work of comprehension. So talking about it is the most important. Making sure we understand it. Once we feel we have the idea in our head of what message we want to convey, then the students share in the composition of the message. So, so here's some examples. Number one, we are building our schema chart for oviparous animals. So I called on students to help stretch out the words and the sounds. Unlike Writer's Workshop, I help them with the sounds that they don't know, but I hold them accountable to the sounds that they do. I will show more on how I do that later, and how I handle that data a little bit later. But I knew this friend that I had with the blue pen, I knew that he knew the sh sound. So when I called him up, and he knew that in isolation. When I tested him, I said, you know, I showed him SH and what sound does it make, and he goes, shh. So I knew he knew it in isolation. But what I want to know is, will he apply it? And so that's part of the reason why I called him up. I want to see if he can transfer that knowledge to his work. Number two is an example of a whoops. He put a capital letter instead of a lowercase letter, so we just cross it off, no big deal, we keep going. This was in January. I was really working on getting those capital and lowercase letters correct. So in interactive writing, it's like the perfect time to work on conventions because they're short sentences, it's controlled, you're right there, you can talk about tall letters and short letters, so it's like perfect. Number three, this is on the same message. And I wrote this. So the first word, that's my horrible handwriting. Was from the boy Head who wrote that. I wrote Peter. And when I wrote that, I said, oh, I know that's a person's name. I need a capital letter. So you just kind of drop that information in that, oh yeah, this is in January, so I'm talking about capitalized people's names. And then I had my friend come up and write the word snowman. We had snow somewhere, so she was able to use resources. Realize that you have like 2.2 seconds before you lose the attention of your student, so you got to move really, really quick. If you were writing the message and you feel like you're losing them, I just take the pen and finish it up. I don't want to have, I don't want to lose them. Somebody had asked about the spaces before. What are the lines for? So on number 4, you see all those lines. We compose the message together, and then I draw a line for every word. I'm not sure where I picked this habit up. I've read it somewhere. I don't know. But so we practiced the sentence over and over again. I think the sentence was, I had a heaping pile of snow. And so we practiced it like in a mouse voice and a princess voice and an opera singer and a cowboy voice. So we kept over and over until they have the sentence in their head. And then I invite students up to come and write. Okay, that's all I want to say about that. Did I skip something? No, okay, we're good. So far we talked about why interactive read-alouds are important. I've walked you through my thinking process as I plan a read-aloud. We talked about some appropriate strategies and lessons and seen a few student samples. I briefly discussed a quick comprehension formative assessment. More on this is coming up. And we talked about vocabulary work. And we talked briefly about interactive writing. So now it's your turn. what is one tip you can implement in your class? And go ahead and put that in your chat box. And by the way, I can't see any of these chats. Can I?
No, you're going to get Deedee, you're going to get a printout of all the questions so you can respond to them in your follow-up log.
Okay, but I'm wondering, like, what if are people putting in their tips on things that they liked or things that they think they can do tomorrow? I'm going to give them like a minute to do that. Hey! Melinda,
Yes.
you popped up in my corner for a second.
Deedee, if you want to take a look now, look for the question box. I'm not sure if you can see that in your panel, but a lot of people like your peanut butter and jelly for partners, I'm noticing.
Woohoo! Good. It makes it a lot easier just to say peanut butter and jelly because partner 1 and partner 2 and my peanut butter and my jelly. So I have 2 sets of partners in my classroom. I have peanut butter and jelly, and then I have ketchup and mustards. So usually ketchup and mustard is something I use for a different, like peanut butter and jelly are my writing and reading partners, and then mustard and ketchup are usually my math partners. That way they don't have always the same partner, and it helps mix it up, and you can do it really super fast. So I make a list of them so that you can always look back and make sure everybody's on task. All right, I'm going to move on. If you want to put more of those tips in there, that's great. I can't see them, so I'm sorry. I wish I could, but I'm going to keep moving because I know you all have probably other things you want to do tonight besides listen to me. So I'm going to move on. Prize package number 3. Go, Melinda.
All righty then. Lucky winner number 3 is Tanya Solano. So Tanya Solano for participating. Yay! Okay, Deedee.
Okay, so we're going to move on. Formative assessment. This is the part of the as part of the instructional process. It provides information so you can adjust your teaching, and it informs the teachers and the students. So do you remember this pace? I talked about it earlier, how a student response can offer a formative assessment. So I already said, like, she did not get the big idea, so I need to make sure I give her a little bit more attention and make sure that next, you know, like we all have those moments when our brains aren't quite connected, and I suspect that's what's going on with her. She just wasn't really thinking, and she was thinking about lunch or something and missed the big. So, but I want to watch. I want to make sure that that's something that she doesn't continue to do, because this is a great reader. Clearly, she has some great handwriting and concepts about print, so I want to make sure that she is getting the big idea. So part of the formative assessment is also a rubric. I make sure that the rubrics are kid-friendly and that they help provide meaningful feedback. So I have, in our units, we have a couple of different rubrics. We have some with the happy face and some with what I call a want-want face. And then they also have some that are just like check boxes. You can just check them. So whatever you're most comfortable with. I will say that I've always used a happy face and the want-want face. I think it helps that you make light of it. In the words of like Ron Clark, who doesn't know me from the Man on the Moon, but in the words of Ron Clark, not everybody gets a cookie. So I don't want to say, wow, you did a great job at yada yada when they didn't. We're going to focus on what they can do. I'm going to really praise the heck out of them for the things that they do really well. And the things that they don't have under their belt yet, I want to tell them those are their next steps. But I don't want to tell them that they're amazing at using the word wall words if they aren't. I don't think anybody benefits from that. The reason why that works for me in my classroom is I use a lot of love. I praise the snot out of them, and I make sure that they know that this is a risk-free environment. Anybody who knows anything about me, I make mistakes all the time. And when I make them in my classroom, I tell everybody, just say, it's cool, Mrs. Wells, and they say, it's cool, and we move on. I think it's important that we all show our vulnerability. I probably do it more. I wish I didn't make as many mistakes, but that's just the way it is. So When my students aren't doing something that I want them to do, I usually hold them accountable with this rubric. So the other part of this, somebody said, what about those students who are second language learners, or maybe they have an IEP? Would I still use the same rubric? No, I would probably scaffold this. I might say, you know what, honey, what we're going to work on for this piece is we're just going to work on writing with some spaces. So that's all we're going to do. Or maybe adding details, which is the one on the bottom, and I would just ask them to do that with their drawing. That could be the only thing that they do, is make sure they have lots of details with their drawing. So you can adjust this to meet the needs of the student, but for your average student, they should be able to handle the rubric without complete meltdown. I did have one boy who was a little bit, like, I think he might have been on the spectrum a little bit. So for him, this rubric caused him pain, so I just adjusted it. It's what he needed, so that's how we did that. Okay, moving on. So, so you remember this picture of the boy with the capital letter. So I had asked him to come up and write the word is, and I knew that he could read the word is, so I wanted to see if he could write it. And the reason I know that is I can do an assessment. ESGI makes these assessments really easy. I can do assessments so I know which words he can read, but now I want to know if he can transfer that to writing. So I can run various reports. I assess, somebody had asked me how often do I do assessments. I do ESGI in my classroom once a week. All the uppercase letters, lowercase letters, and sight words, I usually test all of my class once a week. My students who are like exceeding expectations, I don't really worry about it. I might do them every other week, about every 14 days. But everybody else gets it about once a week. And that way I can use that information to kid watch. So each day I pick about 5 students that I'm going to kid watch, and I'm going to look and see, are they taking the data that they have tested showing that they know? Are they applying it? I mean, that's probably one of the things that you hear all the time from upper grades, like, well, they don't know how to do yada, yada, yada. And you're like, I tested them. They knew how to do it. So what we want to do is, yes, they can do it in isolation, but can they do it in everyday classroom work? So that's part of the reason why this formative assessment, that's part of what I want to do that with. Oh, that didn't even make sense. I need another Diet Coke. Okay, moving on. Summative assessment is given periodically to determine what the students know and they don't know at a specific point in time. So we created a summative assessment for each book. This is the one for Ordinary Mary. That's a paper one, and it's a true and false question. And then I created them for ESGI. So all of those assessments are in the system. So right now, I don't really mean all because I'm a little bit behind, but I have August, September, October, November, and half of December's are in, and then the one for Ordinary Mary's in ESGI. So if you have ESGI, you can find those assessments. You just go in and click on that Friends of ESGI, and I'm a friend of ESGI. So you pick on, look for my name, and it'll say like GR for guiding readers, and then the title of the book, and you can go ahead and use that to assess your students. I'm not sure if it's absolutely necessary to test them for every single one, but you may or may not have an administration that wants to have some kind of paper trail, and this would be a great way to do it. Prize package number 4. It's your turn. Go, Melinda.
I'm here. Thank you. Prize winner number 4 is Ms. Mitzi Vincent. So congratulations, Miss Mitzi Vincent.
Yay! Congratulations. Okay, we're going to go on. I know you like a live slide sitting here on the computer. So questions and answers. People ask me about small group. Guiding readers isn't really something I would do in small group. It's something I would do whole group. However, if you wanted to take this and use it within a small group, you could. But understand this is not, they're not reading the text. This text is way, way above most of your kindergarten and first grade's reading ability. So you would be doing the decoding, they would be doing the thinking. So you could do it in small group, or if you're like an interventionist, it would be perfect for if you're working on comprehension, and if you're working on writing, responding to literature, be perfect. Phonics. I do We do have phonics included in the guiding readers, so all of that information, it's not in the sample pack because it's huge, but all of the phonics and phonemic awareness is included in there. So it talks about, people ask me like, what order do I use letters? I don't believe in letter of the week. You know, we do all of the letters at the very beginning of the year, and then we go back and reinforce them throughout our instruction. And how do I differentiate? That was another question. I differentiate by the amount of scaffolding I give the students. So if I have a student who's capable, I set them on their own. I set them on their way. They can handle it. But some students need a little bit of support. With the interactive writing, I leave that writing up while they're doing their response. And some people have asked, do you worry about them copying? I don't really worry about them copying. At the beginning of the year, that some of them copy. But if you saw in the example from Abe Lincoln's hat, they don't copy for long. They've got, if you teach them that what they have to say is important, they're going to write their own message. So at first they might use that as a crutch, but over time they're going to not, they're not going to copy. Most of your students are not going to copy. If you have somebody who's continuing to copy, you may just say, come on over here, sweetheart, and you could support them in writing their own message. Let's see. How would I do? One of the questions, how do I focus, keep the students focused? One, you have to remember the 5- and 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds if you're in first grade. So you have to be very animated. If you can see me right now, my arms are like all over the place. My hands are up. I can't talk without moving my hands. But when I do my read aloud, I'm also walking around the room. I don't sit in a chair and read. I get up and move, and they have to kind of track me, and I'm pretty animated. I didn't read the book in this way. Because you're all adults and I'm kind of a little self-conscious. But when I read with kids, I'm very animated and my body is moving the whole time, so that definitely helps. And then when we finished with the book, they have a chance to talk to their partner. So they're just, and during certain parts of the book, they're going to stop and talk to the partners. During certain parts of the books, they might get up and respond. So it's not like they're sitting there the whole time. But it's a real active part of our day. It's not a passive. They're moving the whole time. How would I do this with half-day kindergarten? I would select probably 2 or 3 of these focus for the week. You can't do it all. I would probably shift in writer's workshop half of the time and responding to literature the other half of the time. I would make sure, like, if I were picking those prompts to do, I may not just always do Friday's opinion prompt. I might do some of those other type of comprehension strategies. If you see that they really got one down, you might want to pick one they haven't done before, and I would pick maybe 2 or 3 of them and kind of flip-flop with Writer's Workshop. Somebody asked me about technology. You know, for this I don't really use technology. It's kind of like old-fashioned. I do use like a document camera. If I want to write on the response sheet directly, I might use the document camera to show that. I use an iPad on a stand, and then the iPad talks to my computer and would show that way if I didn't want to use chart paper. But I don't really use technology. We do put links in there for the videos, but honestly, I don't usually watch those. We usually go right to the book. Tips for reluctant readers. Expect them to do it. I mean, if they're reluctant, part of the reason why they're reluctant is because they feel like it's something that isn't relevant to them. So you have to figure out a way to reach them. Let's see, we're going to move on. Okay, so here we're almost done. Y'all probably ready to eat dinner or like kill meat. But anyhow, questions and answers. Give ESGI a try. Swing by my blog tomorrow. If you have any questions right now, they're going to give me a list of them, and tomorrow on my blog I'm going to try to answer as many questions as I possibly can. It may be some of those questions or more towards a different subject, so I'll save those and write about those later. Swing by and also I want you to swing by because I'm going to have a little giveaway. So you can enter a whole, you'll win a whole month's worth of guiding readers. So swing by tomorrow. And then the last thing I wanted to say, if you go on my blog and look for the little emblem that has Mary that says it's on the bottom, like right-hand corner. If you click on it, I'm going to make a freebie just for you guys. Plus, you'll be able to download this unit together at the same time. If you can't download it in the presentation, you can download the sample of Ordinary Mary tomorrow. I want to tell you, y'all, listen real quick, 7 days. It's going to be there for 7 days. So next Friday, I'm going to take that link off. So you've got to go and get it in that period of time. I know some people are going to hear this on this presentation on YouTube like in a year. It's not going to be there. But if you go to my blog in the next 7 days and you click on Make Your Read-Alouds Come Alive, that picture, it's going to take you to a Google Drive, and you'll be able to download a free item, a couple free things for me. All right. You're also going to get your certificate. You should get that in a few days. And go, Miss Melinda.
Okay, well, it looks like we have one more winner, and her name is Kelly Thornton. So, Kelly Thornton, congratulations, and thank you for participating this entire hour.
Oh. Thank you, you guys. I really was excited about doing this, and I'm so glad to see so many people join me. This is my blog. If you haven't been there before, go by there tomorrow to get your goodies. And I want to thank ESGI for sponsoring it. ESGI's made a huge difference in the way that I think about instruction. It allows me to use the data to drive my instruction. So I do encourage you to get that free download. You can get not free membership. You can get 2 months for free, and I think it will change your life. So anyhow, thank you. Rochelle, back to you.
Thank you so much, Deedee, for presenting this great information today. You've got so many questions in the chat window that I'm sure you're going to answer tomorrow in your blog. But everyone, don't forget to check your email in the next 2 days for your certificate and your link to the recording so you can share it with your friends. Again, thank you so much, Deedee, for being such a great friend of ESGI. And there are many of you asking, how can you find out about more great webinars that are presented by our partners? Please follow us on social media. And you should also, because you've registered for this webinar, get an email for future webinars. So we hope to see you there. Thank you so much and have a great night.
Bye, y'all.